I got my hands on a magic potion. Whoever drinks it falls hopelessly in love with me. Without a moment's hesitation, I drank every last drop. This time, I was choosing to love myself. In my last life, after my husband, Sean, cheated on me, I came across a strange potion. A faded inscription clung to the glass: "Whoever drinks this water shall fall helplessly in love with the one who gave it." I clung to it like a drowning woman to a piece of driftwood, pinning all my desperate hopes on this mysterious concoction. I mixed it into Sean's coffee. The effect was instantaneous. He began to distance himself from his mistress, his gaze slowly returning to me. He started remembering our anniversaries, bringing home flowers. He would hold me as we fell asleep, whispering the sweet nothings I hadn't heard in years. It was as if we truly returned to the heady days of our first love. We became that couple again, the one everyone envied. Everyone thought Sean was deeply in love with me. Only I knew his love wasn't his choice. I was the one who made him drink the potion. When he held me, when he kissed me, my mind would conjure the sordid intimate photos of him with her. Worse, a gnawing fear became my constant shadow. Every time he spoke to another woman for work, every time one of his former flings crossed our path, alarm bells screamed in my head: is the potion wearing off? Is he going to leave me again? I became a nervous wreck, a stranger to myself. Then I got pregnant. Joy was fleeting, immediately swallowed by a massive wave of terror. What if one day the potion really did wear off? What if Sean went back to being the man who despised me? What would I do then? And what would happen to my child? Love in its truest form is the surrender of free will. It's the conscious fall two free souls take after finding each other. But I had poisoned that possibility long ago. A careless comment from Sean, "Honey, you've got some new lines around your eyes," was enough to completely shatter my composure. I couldn't focus. I made constant mistakes at work. I felt like a string stretched to its breaking point. And finally, after weeks of emotional turmoil, the baby I had never met slipped away from me. Sean held me, murmuring words of comfort. But in that moment, what flooded my heart wasn't solace, but a tidal wave of regret. I regretted it all. So this time, when that familiar blue vial appeared before me again, I didn't hesitate for a second. Love you, Paige. See you tomorrow. After drinking the magic potion, I stood still for a moment, waiting for a change. Nothing felt different. But remembering the effect it had on Sean in my past life, I didn't doubt its power. Perhaps some changes aren't meant to be seen. Just then, my stomach rumbled. Right. I hadn't eaten a thing since I'd been reborn. I walked out of the bedroom. In the warm glow of the living room lights, a lavish spread of food covered the dining table. I froze for a second, then remembered, I had been reborn on the exact day of my 6th wedding anniversary with Sean. How had I spent this day in my last life? I had dressed up meticulously and gone to Sean's office. In front of everyone, I begged him to come home for dinner. As I left his office, I could feel the pitying and mocking stares of his employees on my back. I came home and cooked a feast, all of his favorites. I had poured all my culinary skills into it, hoping to win back his heart through his stomach. And what was the result? I sat alone on that cold chair all night. Sean spent the evening with his mistress. That was his anniversary gift to me. Now, looking at the same table of food, the feeling was completely different. No anticipation, no anxiety. Just a pure, primal need. I was hungry. To cater to Sean's bland palate, I, a Louisiana girl born and bred, hadn't even made a single decent spicy dish. I slapped my thigh. That's right. Who was I trying to please? Now it was past 8 in the evening, but I was suddenly buzzing with energy. I threw the fish stew back in the pan, cranking up the heat and topping it with a generous slick of sizzling chili oil and a handful of peppercorns. I reworked the steamed seafood, burying it under a mountain of minced garlic and fiery red peppers. The table was now a glorious, vibrant crimson. The intoxicating aroma of spice filled the entire kitchen. This feeling, it was absolutely incredible. I was in the middle of my feast, sweat beading on my forehead from the heat, when my phone lying on the table lit up with a new message. It was from Sean's assistant, also one of his mistresses. "Hey, girl, you haven't seen my new post, have you?" I picked up a piece of chicken, chewing it slowly as I tapped open her social media feed. The latest post was from 10 minutes ago. The photo showed two hands, fingers intertwined. The background was my favorite high-end restaurant. The romantic implication was obvious. I recognized Sean's hand instantly. I had compared it to my own countless times. Long fingers, elegant knuckles, and the faint pale band of skin where his wedding ring used to be. I stared at it for a moment, then expressionlessly hit like. A moment later, the post vanished. It was immediately replaced by a new one. Oops. My boyfriend saw my last post. He said my punishment is no sleep tonight. I put my phone down. There was, admittedly, a small sharp sting in my chest. My once ravenous appetite had dimmed slightly. Not for them, of course. For me. "Paige, you cooked this amazing meal, a whole table of food you love, just for you, and you're going to let some pathetic social media post ruin it? Eat. Now. Look at you. You're so thin. You look like a strong wind could blow you over right now. Sean is wrapped up with his little plaything and you're here getting sentimental over a perfect meal. You can't do this to yourself, Paige. You hear me?" After my little self-pep talk, I took a deep breath, pushing down the sour feeling in my chest. I picked up a large piece of fish, put it in my mouth and chewed with purpose. "Damn, that's good. That's more like it, Paige." As I was finishing up, my phone vibrated again. It was my mom. I had barely answered before her voice, sharp and angry, assaulted my ear. "Paige, so what if Sean cheats on you? Are you going to die if you just turn a blind eye? What successful man doesn't have a little fun on the side? I don't care what you have to do, cry, beg, pretend you don't know, but you are not to let a catch like Sean go. Do you hear me? If you keep making a scene, he's really going to divorce you. Then what will you do? He's a big shot now, a CEO. All you need to do is hold on tight to your title as Mrs. My fingers clutching the phone felt ice cold. A sense of absurdity choked me. News of my recent activities must have reached my parents. I hadn't even done anything that extreme, not in my eyes anyway, not compared to what Sean had done to me. All I did was smash the car he bought for his mistress. The day I found out, I showed up in my most eye-catching red dress and, in front of everyone, gave him and the woman on his arm each a resounding slap across the face. I thought that by humiliating him, by shaming him, he would learn that betrayal has consequences. But I was wrong. In his world, in his circle, cheating was an unspoken privilege. No one condemned him for it. They just looked at me with pity or scorn, then clapped Sean on the shoulder and said, "Just divorce her, man. Why put up with a crazy woman?" But I didn't want a divorce, so my craziness became his excuse to cheat even more blatantly. He started staying out all night, deliberately coming home with traces of other women on him just to provoke me. He couldn't control me, so he fed an exaggerated version of my actions to my parents. He knew their weaknesses, their values. He used them to suppress me, to discipline me, to make me face reality. So as my mother's advice continued to pour through the phone, the rage and hurt I had suppressed for so long finally erupted. I screamed into the receiver, "What do you mean it's normal to have mistresses? He cheated. He betrayed our marriage, and you think he's the one who's right? You don't know a damn thing." Her voice screeched back, rising in pitch. "You ungrateful girl, you have a wretched fate. Landing a man like Sean was the luckiest thing that ever happened to you. Don't be so ungrateful. I'm telling you, if you dare cause trouble with him again, if you dare mention the words divorce or unfair, your father and I will pretend we never had a daughter. We'll consider you dead. Such bad luck. You have a good life and you just have to ruin it." They hung up. My hand trembled as I placed the phone back on the table. My whole body was shaking. My chest felt like it was being crushed by a boulder, heavy and tight, making it hard to breathe. 2 lifetimes. In my last life, I listened to them. I chose to endure. This time, I thought being reborn was a release, a new beginning. But the knife wielded by my closest family still found the same old wound and plunged even deeper. The injustice of 2 lifetimes, the loneliness of being misunderstood, the venomous accusations from my own parents, all of it crashed over me, lodging in my throat. Everyone said Sean was young and successful, that it was normal for a man, especially a rich one, to have a few women on the side. But who remembered? Who remembered when he was starting his business, hitting walls everywhere, his funding about to dry up? It was me. I took every penny of my savings, scraped together from years of working and scrimping, and put it in front of him without a word. I told him, if you lose it, you lose it. I can always earn more. Back then, we were crammed in a tiny rental, eating instant noodles, and he would hold my hand, his eyes brighter than the stars, promise he would never let me down. I took my wine glass and walked barefoot to the floor-to-ceiling window. Outside, the city glittered like a river of stars. Sean's mistress's taunts hadn't hurt me, but my parents' words, all delivered for my own good, felt like a dull blade sawing at my heart. My eyes suddenly burned. I tilted my head back, blinking hard, trying to force back the heat. I drained my glass in one go. After the initial burn, a long bitter aftertaste remained. Fine. I chose the wrong man. So what? It's not so hard to admit I had terrible judgment. It's okay. Last time I was possessed. I tied my entire self-worth to one man. I lost myself and lost everything. This time I just won't make the same stupid mistake again. All right, Paige, I whispered to the sprawling city lights, my voice hoarse, deliberate. I give you permission to be hurt and love. I give you permission to pour out your heart and find you loved the wrong person. I give you permission to feel wronged, to want to cry because your family doesn't understand. I give you permission to cry, permission to break, permission to just be incredibly sad and fragile in this one moment. As the words left my lips, I hugged my knees tightly to my chest. As if a final chain had snapped, I let out a raw, wrenching sob. The sound echoed in the empty living room. It was ragged, ugly, but utterly real. I don't know how long I cried, until I was exhausted, until only quiet, hiccuping sobs remained. I lifted my head, my face a mess of tear tracks, my voice thick. It's okay to cry. It's not a big deal. I won't judge you for it, right, Paige? Outside, the city lights burned on, indifferent. Just as I felt I was about to be swallowed by grief, my phone rang. The screen's glare stung my swollen eyes. Not wanting anyone to hear my state, I sniffled hard, wiped my face on my sleeve and took a big gulp of water from a glass on the table. After clearing my throat, I finally answered. Hello? Paige. It was my best friend. Did you hear they're forecasting a major aurora display up near Fairbanks? It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance. You wanna go? The Northern Lights. For a moment, I couldn't speak. My throat was still raw from crying, and the sudden shift from despair to possibility left me disoriented. Paige? You still there? Maya's voice crackled with concern through the speaker. I cleared my throat again, trying to sound normal. Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, when? This weekend. I know it's last minute, but the forecast window is narrow. The solar activity peaks Friday night through Sunday morning. I've already looked at flights, there's a red-eye tomorrow night that gets us there Friday afternoon. We'd have the whole weekend under the lights. My gaze drifted back to the window, to the artificial glow of the city that had witnessed my breakdown moments ago. The thought of escaping, of putting physical distance between myself and this suffocating life, sent a flutter through my chest. But the practical voice in my head, the one shaped by 6 years of marriage to Sean, by my parents' expectations, by the fear of making waves, immediately protested. It's your anniversary weekend. What will people think? What will Sean say? Then another voice, softer but stronger, whispered back, "Who cares? Paige?" Maya pressed. "I can hear you thinking too hard. That's always been your problem, you know. You think and think until you've talked yourself out of everything good." A laugh bubbled up from somewhere deep in my chest, surprising me. It came out watery, broken, but genuine. "You're right. God, Maya, you're so right. About the lights or about you overthinking?" "Both." I wiped at my eyes with the back of my hand, feeling something shift inside me. The potion I'd drunk earlier, the one that was supposed to make me fall in love with myself, maybe it was working after all. Or maybe I was just exhausted enough to stop fighting my own instincts. "Book my ticket. I'm going." The squeal that erupted from Maya's end made me pull the phone away from my ear. "Yes." "Oh my God, Paige, you have no idea how much you need this. Trust me, the universe is literally aligning for you right now." After we hung up, I stood there for a long moment, phone still in hand, letting the decision settle over me like a blanket. Friday night. The Northern Lights. Alaska. 3,000 miles from Sean, from my parents, from the life that had slowly been crushing me under its weight. I glanced at the dining table, at the remnants of my spicy feast. The chili oil had congealed slightly, the peppers dulled in color, but I could still smell the lingering heat in the air. That meal had been my first real act of rebellion, choosing my taste over his, my pleasure over his comfort. This trip would be the second. I walked to my laptop and opened my email, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. I should tell Sean. That's what a good wife does, right? Communicates. Keeps her husband informed of her whereabouts. But the thought of asking his permission, because that's what it would be, really, asking, not telling, made my stomach turn. I thought of him at that restaurant right now, his fingers laced with his assistants, his wedding ring abandoned somewhere, probably in the glove compartment of his car or tucked in a gym bag. I closed the laptop without writing anything. Instead, I headed to the bedroom and pulled out my old travel backpack from the top shelf of the closet. Dust motes danced in the air as I set it on the bed. How long had it been since I'd gone anywhere that wasn't for Sean's business conferences or obligatory family visits? Years. Actual years. As I began pulling out winter clothes, thermals I'd bought for a ski trip that never happened, the thick wool socks I'd gotten as a gift and never worn, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Sean. "Working late tonight. Don't wait up." 6 words. Not even a full sentence. No mention of our anniversary, no acknowledgement of the date. In my past life, this message would have devastated me. I would have stared at it for hours, dissecting every word, every possible meaning, torturing myself with images of what working late actually meant. Now, I just felt tired. And beneath that exhaustion, something else. Relief. I typed back quickly, "Okay. Have a good night." No emotion. No passive aggression. No desperate plea for attention. Just acknowledgement. I watched the message send, watched the read receipt pop up almost immediately. Then I turned off my phone completely and tossed it onto the nightstand. The silence that followed felt like freedom. The next day at work, I moved through my tasks with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. Maybe it was the anticipation of the trip, or maybe it was something deeper, a fundamental shift in how I saw myself in relation to the world around me. I worked as a graphic designer at a mid-sized marketing firm, a job I'd taken specifically because it offered flexibility when Sean's business was just starting. I'd turned down better positions, more prestigious companies, always with the reasoning that I needed to be available, supportive, the steadfast wife behind the ambitious man. Now, sitting at my desk, I looked at the portfolio pieces I'd been too afraid to submit to the design competitions I'd once dreamed of entering. Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of outshining Sean, all of it had kept me small. "Paige, you good?" My colleague, Derek, leaned over the cubicle divider, his eyebrows raised in concern. "You've been staring at that screen for like 10 minutes without moving." I blinked, shaking myself out of my reverie. "Yeah, sorry, Just thinking. About the Morrison campaign? Because I have some ideas if you want to brainstorm. Actually, I heard myself say, I was thinking about entering the Regional Design Awards. The deadline's next month. Derek's face lit up. Seriously? Paige, you should have done that years ago. Your work is incredible. The compliment settled over me, warm and unfamiliar. When was the last time someone had praised my work without qualifiers? Without the subtle implication that it was good for a hobbyist or impressive considering? Thanks, I said, and meant it. I think I'm finally ready. The rest of the workday passed in a productive blur. When 5 p.m. rolled around, I didn't linger like I usually did, trying to time my arrival home to match Sean's schedule. I packed my bag, said my goodbyes, and left. On the drive home, my phone, which I'd turned back on during lunch, showed 3 missed calls from my mother and 1 from Sean. No voicemails. I deleted the notifications without listening and turned on music instead. An old song from college came on, something I used to blast while pulling all-nighters in the design lab, fueled by cheap coffee and the intoxicating belief that I could create something beautiful. When had I stopped listening to this music? When had I traded my own soundtrack for the silence Sean preferred? I turned it up louder. That evening, I packed for Alaska with the meticulous care I used to reserve for Sean's comfort. But this time every item I folded into my backpack was for me. The cashmere scarf I'd bought myself 3 Christmases ago but never worn because Sean said it was too flashy. The vintage camera I'd found at an estate sale, still in its leather case because I'd been too self-conscious to use it. The journal with blank pages that I'd been too afraid to fill, worried that writing down my real thoughts would make them too real, too dangerous. I was zipping up the main compartment when I heard the front door open. My whole body tensed, an involuntary response ingrained by months of walking on eggshells. But then I remembered the potion, remembered my choice, and forced my shoulders to relax. Sean appeared in the bedroom doorway, his tie loosened, looking every bit the successful CEO my mother was so proud of. His gaze fell on the backpack, then on me. Going somewhere? His tone was casual, but there was an edge to it. Alaska. This weekend. I continued packing my toiletries, not looking at him. Alaska. He repeated the word like it was foreign. For what? To see the northern lights. The northern lights. Another echo, this time laced with disbelief. It's our anniversary weekend, Paige. I paused, a bitter smile tugging at my lips. I turned to face him fully. Is it? I wasn't sure you remembered. Something flickered across his face, irritation? Guilt? I couldn't tell anymore, and I realized with startling clarity that I didn't care. That's not fair, he said. I've been busy with the merger. You know how important this deal is. Right. The merger. I went back to packing. More important than dinner. More important than a phone call. More important than a text beyond working late. Paige, he stepped into the room, and I caught a whiff of perfume that definitely wasn't mine. Jasmine and vanilla. His assistant's signature scent. What's gotten into you? You've been acting strange lately. Strange? I zipped up the toiletry bag with more force than necessary. Or different? Because there's a distinction, Sean. Strange implies something's wrong with me. Different just means I'm not playing the same game anymore. His jaw tightened. This is about yesterday, isn't it? About me working late on our anniversary. Look, I'm sorry, but you're being unreasonable. You know what my schedule's like. In my past life, I would have crumbled at this point. The word unreasonable would have lodged in my chest like a shard of glass, and I would have spent hours, days, trying to prove I wasn't. Trying to be smaller, quieter, more accommodating. But I'd drunk the potion. I'd chosen to love myself. And that meant accepting that my needs weren't unreasonable just because they inconvenienced him. You're right, I said softly. I do know what your schedule's like. I know exactly where you were last night. I know about the restaurant, about the hand-holding, about the social media post your assistant put up and then deleted. The color drained from his face. For a moment, he looked genuinely caught off guard. Then, predictably, the defenses went up. I don't know what you think you saw, but… Sean. I held up a hand, cutting him off. I'm not doing this. I'm not having this fight. Not tonight, not ever again. I'm tired of trying to convince you to choose me. I'm tired of surveillance and suspicion and making myself sick over whether you're telling the truth. I'm just tired. He stared at me, and I could see the calculations happening behind his eyes. This wasn't the Paige he knew. The Paige who begged, who cried, who made scenes. This version of me was foreign to him. So what, you're leaving me? There was a challenge in his voice, like he didn't quite believe it. I'm going to Alaska to see the northern lights, I corrected. What happens after that, I don't know yet. But right now, in this moment, I'm choosing me. I shouldered my backpack and walked past him. He didn't try to stop me. Maybe he was too shocked, or maybe, deep down, he was relieved. At the bedroom door, I paused and looked back. For what it's worth, Sean, I hope your merger goes well. I really do. I hope you get everything you wanted. Because I finally realized that what he wanted and what I needed were never going to align. And that was okay. Maya picked me up at 6 a.m. the next morning, her ancient Jeep idling in front of the apartment complex. I'd spent the night in the guest room, unwilling to share the bed with Sean, who'd stayed up late in his office, door closed. You look like hell, Maya said cheerfully as I climbed into the passenger seat. But like, in a good way. Like you've been through something. I laughed, checking my reflection in the visor mirror. She wasn't wrong. My eyes were still puffy from the crying Jag 2 nights ago, and I hadn't slept well. But there was something else in my face too, a lightness around my mouth, a ease in my expression. I feel like I've been through something, I admitted. But yeah, in a good way. The drive to the airport was filled with Maya's chatter about solar flares and KP indices and the best spots for aurora viewing. She'd done her research, mapped out our entire itinerary with the enthusiasm of a kid planning Christmas. I'd met Maya in college, back when I was still Paige Winters, art student and wild dreamer. She'd been my roommate, my partner in crime, my 3 a.m. existential crisis hotline. After I married Sean, we'd drifted. Not because of any fight, just the natural entropy that happens when one person's life contracts while the other's expands. I'm sorry, I said suddenly, interrupting her explanation of how to photograph the aurora with long exposure. She glanced over, surprised. For what? For disappearing. For the last few years. I got so wrapped up in being Mrs. Sean Matthews that I forgot how to be Paige. Maya's expression softened. She reached over and squeezed my hand. You're here now. That's what matters. The flight to Fairbanks was uneventful, one connection in Seattle, lots of coffee, and a growing sense of anticipation that fluttered in my stomach like wings. I kept my phone on airplane mode, ignoring the notifications I knew would be piling up. My mother, probably. Sean, definitely. Maybe his assistant, gleefully updating her social media about their weekend plans. None of it touched me. Up here, at 35,000 feet, I was suspended between my old life and whatever came next. It felt like floating. We landed in Fairbanks just as the sun was setting, which, in late January, meant around 4 p.m. The cold hit us like a physical wall when we stepped outside the terminal, sharp and clean and absolutely nothing like the tempered climate control of my life back home. Oh my God, Maya gasped, her breath forming clouds. This is amazing. I tilted my face up to the sky, feeling the bite of cold on my cheeks, in my lungs. It hurt a little. It also felt incredible. We'd rented a small cabin about 40 miles outside of Fairbanks, far enough from light pollution to have a clear view of the sky. The drive there took us through increasingly sparse landscape, pine forests, frozen rivers, the occasional cluster of houses with smoke rising from chimneys. Our cabin was tiny but perfect. Wood-burning stove, thick quilts on the beds, windows that faced north. Maya immediately started unpacking her camera equipment while I stood at the window, watching the last vestiges of daylight fade into deep blue. "It's beautiful," I whispered. "Just wait," Maya said. "If the forecast is right, tonight's going to be spectacular." We made dinner together, pasta with whatever vegetables we'd grabbed at the grocery store, garlic bread, cheap red wine. It was simple, chaotic, perfect. We ate bundled in blankets near the fire, and Maya told me about her life, about the gallery show she was planning, about the guy she'd been seeing who made her laugh. "What about you?" she asked eventually, pouring us both more wine. "I know things with Sean have been complicated. But what do you want, Paige? Not what your parents want, not what Sean wants. You." I stared into my wine glass, watching the firelight play across the dark surface. What did I want? "I want to wake up without dread," I said slowly. "I want to create things again without second-guessing every choice. I want to feel like I'm enough, just as I am, without having to shrink or expand to fit someone else's expectations." I looked up at her. "I want to fall in love with my life again." Maya's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Then do it. You're already halfway there, Paige. You're here, aren't you?" Around 10 p.m., Maya's phone buzzed with an alert from her Aurora tracking app. "KP index is rising," she announced, jumping up. "We should head out." We dressed in every layer we owned, thermals, sweaters, parkas, scarves wrapped around our faces until only our eyes showed. Maya grabbed her camera equipment, I grabbed my vintage camera and journal, and we trudged out into the night. The cold was shocking. The kind of cold that makes your nose hairs freeze, that turns your breath to ice crystals in the air. But overhead, the sky was clear. So impossibly clear. Stars scattered across the blackness like shattered diamonds, more stars than I'd ever seen in my light-polluted city life. "There," Maya breathed, pointing north. At first, I thought it was a cloud. A faint, pale green glow on the horizon. But then it moved. Shifted. Began to dance. The northern lights. They started as a ribbon, then exploded into curtains of light, green and pink and purple, swirling and undulating across the sky like some cosmic ballet. Pillars of light shot upward, then collapsed, then reformed. It was alive. The whole sky was alive. I forgot about the cold. Forgot about everything except the impossible beauty unfolding above me. "Oh my God," I whispered. Then louder, "Oh my God." Maya was beside me, camera clicking, but I could hear the wonder in her voice too. "Paige, look at that. Look at that." I raised my vintage camera with shaking hands and tried to capture it, but I knew immediately that no photograph could do this justice. This was something you had to feel, had to experience with your whole body, your whole soul. The lights danced for hours. We stood there, two small figures in the vast Alaskan darkness, necks craned skyward, watching the universe put on a show. At some point, I started crying. Not sad tears, not angry tears. Something else entirely. Release, maybe. Or recognition. The aurora didn't care about my failed marriage or my parents' disappointment or my lost years. It simply existed, beautiful and wild and free, following its own mysterious rhythms. I wanted to be like that. I pulled out my journal and, even in the darkness, I started writing. Not coherent sentences, just fragments. Impressions. Truths I'd been too afraid to speak aloud. I am not a supporting character in someone else's story. I deserve love that doesn't require magic potions. My worth is not determined by my ability to keep a man who doesn't want to stay. I am allowed to choose myself. I am allowed to leave. I am allowed to begin again. The aurora swirled overhead, painting the snow in shifting shades of green and pink, and I felt something fundamental shift inside me. Not a sudden transformation, but a quiet recognition. The potion hadn't made me fall in love with myself. It had simply given me permission to start trying. We stayed in Alaska for 2 more days. During the daylight hours, we explored Fairbanks, visited the University Museum, drank too much coffee in quirky cafes. Each night, we returned to our viewing spot, and each night, the aurora appeared, each performance different from the last. I took hundreds of photos. I filled my journal. I called my mother and told her, calmly, that I needed space. I didn't answer Sean's increasingly frantic texts. On our last night, as we packed up to head back to the cabin, Maya turned to me. You know you can't avoid real life forever, right? I know. I zipped up my camera bag. But I needed this. I needed to remember who I was before I became who everyone else wanted me to be. And who is that? I thought about it, watching the last traces of the aurora fade as dawn approached. I'm still figuring it out. But I think that's okay. I think maybe that's the whole point. The flight home felt different. I wasn't returning to my old life. I was returning to dismantle it, piece by careful piece, and build something new from the rubble. Maya dropped me off at my apartment complex with a long hug. Whatever you decide, I'm here, she whispered. You're not alone in this. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. The apartment was dark when I let myself in. It was Sunday afternoon, but Sean wasn't home. A note on the kitchen counter, in his sharp handwriting, at the office. We need to talk when you get back. I crumpled the note and tossed it in the trash. I did need to talk to him. But first, I needed to talk to myself. I went to the bedroom and pulled out my laptop. Opened a new document. And I started writing. Not a journal entry, not scattered fragments. A plan. What I want. To file for divorce. To move into my own place. To submit my portfolio to the design competition. To rebuild my relationship with Maya and other friends I'd neglected. To set boundaries with my parents. To discover what loving myself actually looks like. To never again mistake dependence for devotion. What I need. A good lawyer. My financial records. The strength to follow through. To trust myself. I stared at the list for a long time. Then I added one more thing. What I know. I am enough. I deserve better. This is not giving up, this is choosing life. Sean came home around 8 p.m. I heard his car in the garage, his footsteps on the stairs. I'd been sitting in the living room, my laptop open, my plan documents saved and printed. He appeared in the doorway, and for the first time, I looked at him with completely clear eyes. Not through the lens of who I wanted him to be, or who he'd been in the early days, or who my parents insisted he was. Just who he actually was. A man who had stopped trying. A man who had taken my love for granted and traded it for convenience and ego. A man who, despite all his success, had never learned that some things are worth more than business deals and social status. You look different, he said, his tone careful. I am different. He sat down across from me, loosening his tie. Paige, we need to talk about this situation. There's no situation, I said calmly. There's just reality. And the reality is that our marriage is over. His eyes widened. You can't be serious. You're throwing away 6 years over one mistake? I almost laughed. One mistake? Sean, you've been cheating on me for at least 2 years. Multiple women. Multiple times. And even if it had been just once, that's still a choice you made. Repeatedly. That's not, I mean, he ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. Fine. I messed up. But we can work through this. Therapy, counseling, whatever you want. I don't want therapy. I don't want counseling. I don't want to spend another year, another month, another day trying to fix something that was broken from the start. I leaned forward. Sean, be honest. Do you even love me? Not the idea of me, not the convenience of having a wife. Me. Paige. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Looked away. That was answer enough. I didn't think so, I said softly. And that's okay. Because I don't think I love you anymore either. Not the real you. I'd been in love with a memory, a hope, a potential that never materialized. But I'm done living in the past. So that's it? His voice had an edge now, the anger surfacing. You're just going to leave? What about your parents? What about our friends? Everyone's going to think. I don't care what they think. The words came out strong, sure. I spent 6 years caring what everyone thought, and it nearly destroyed me. I'm not doing that anymore. I stood up and handed him the printed document. These are my terms. Read them over. I'm not trying to take you to the cleaners, I just want what I put into this marriage and the freedom to leave. You can have your lawyer look at it. He stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. I'm staying at Maya's tonight, I continued, slinging my bag over my shoulder. I'll be back tomorrow to get more of my things. I'd appreciate it if you weren't here. I walked to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Sean, I hope you figure out what actually makes you happy. I hope you find something that matters more than winning. I hope you become the man who deserved the trust one gave you. I left before he could respond. 3 months later. The coffee shop near my new apartment had become my regular morning spot. Small, locally owned, with mismatched furniture and art from local students on the walls. Nothing like the sterile, trendy places Sean preferred. I sat at my favorite corner table, my laptop open, working on a design project. Not for a client, for myself. For the competition entry that was due in 2 weeks. My phone buzzed. A text from Maya, lunch? I have news. I smiled and typed back, absolutely. Noon at the Vietnamese place? Life had developed a new rhythm. I'd moved into a tiny studio apartment that cost half what I'd been paying for the house with Sean. I'd reduced my hours at the firm to part-time so I could focus on freelance projects and my competition entry. I'd started therapy. I'd had exactly 2 conversations with my parents, both of which ended with them expressing their disappointment, and both of which I'd survived. The divorce was progressing. Sean had tried to drag it out at first, oscillating between anger and attempted reconciliation. But eventually, he'd signed the papers. Maybe he was relieved too. I'd heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd gotten serious with his assistant. I felt nothing about it. No jealousy, no satisfaction. Just a distant sense that they were exactly as suited for each other as I hoped they weren't. My phone buzzed again. This time an email notification. From the Regional Design Awards Committee. My heart jumped into my throat. I clicked it open, barely breathing. Dear Ms. Winters, we are pleased to inform you that your portfolio has been selected as a finalist. I read the sentence 3 times. Then I burst out laughing, right there in the coffee shop, startling the barista and the college student at the next table. Finalist. I was a finalist. I grabbed my phone and called Maya. I got in. I practically shouted when she answered. The design competition, I'm a finalist. Her scream was so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. Oh my God. Paige. I knew it. I freaking knew it. We talked for 10 more minutes, Maya already planning a celebration, before hanging up. I sat there, staring at the email, feeling a warmth spread through my chest that had nothing to do with the coffee cooling beside me. This was what loving myself felt like. Not a potion-induced enchantment, not a sudden transformation. Just small, daily choices. Choosing my own taste in food. Choosing my own apartment. Choosing to create art without permission. Choosing to end a marriage that was killing me softly. Choosing to wake up each morning and try again. It wasn't always easy. There were days when I missed the security of my old life, when I questioned whether I'd made the right choice. Days when my mother's voice echoed in my head, telling me I'd thrown away my only chance at a good life. But then I'd remember Alaska. the aurora dancing across the infinite sky. The way I'd felt standing there in the cold, small but not insignificant, alone but not lonely. Part of something vast and beautiful and utterly indifferent to my human dramas. I'd remember that nature didn't need permission to be extraordinary. It simply was. And maybe I could be that too. 6 months later. The gallery opening was packed. My design had won second place in the competition, which came with a cash prize and, more importantly, this show. 20 pieces, displayed on pristine white walls under perfect lighting. My name on the placard, Paige Winters Visual Narratives. Not Paige Matthews. Paige Winters. I'd taken back my maiden name the day the divorce finalized. Maya stood beside me, elegant in a black dress, playing the role of both best friend and unofficial curator. That guy over there has been staring at the Aurora series for like 15 minutes, she whispered. I think he's going to buy one. The Aurora series. 5 pieces inspired by that trip to Alaska. Abstract interpretations of the lights, using techniques I'd been too afraid to try before. They were weird, experimental, completely unmarketable according to conventional wisdom. They were also my favorite things I'd ever created. He can stare all he wants, I said, sipping my champagne. I'm not selling those. Paige, he's offering. I know. But they're not for sale. Those pieces are mine. Maya grinned. Look at you, setting boundaries. I'm so proud. A woman approached us, middle-aged, with kind eyes and an expensive handbag. Excuse me, are you Paige Winters? I nodded. I am. I absolutely love your work. Especially this one. She gestured to a piece called Breaking Point, a chaotic explosion of reds and blacks that I'd painted the week I'd moved out. It's so honest. So raw. Would you consider a commission? We talked for 20 minutes. She wanted a series for her office building. Large scale. High budget. The kind of project that could sustain me for months. After she left, pressing her business card into my hand with a promise to email, I caught my reflection in one of the gallery windows. I looked healthy. The weight I'd lost during my marriage had come back in softer, more natural places. The lines around my eyes that Sean had once criticized with disdain now looked like evidence of laughter, of life lived. My hair was longer, wilder, the way I liked it. I looked like myself. Paige. A familiar voice cut through the crowd. I turned to see Derek from my old firm, weaving through the guests with a huge smile. This is incredible. I had no idea you were working on all this. We hugged, and he introduced me to his boyfriend, and we talked about the old office gossip and where everyone had ended up. He told me they'd replaced me with 2 people and still couldn't keep up with the work. You should come back, he said. They'd hire you as a senior designer in a heartbeat. Full-time, benefits, the works. I considered it. A year ago, even 6 months ago, I would have said yes immediately. The security, the prestige, the validation. But now. I'm actually really happy freelancing, I said. I like the flexibility. The creative control. The way I can turn down projects that don't feel right. Derek looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. You know what? I get it. You look happy, Paige. Like, actually happy. Not just pretending. I am, I said, and realized with a start that it was completely true. 1 year later. I stood in the international terminal at the airport, my backpack slung over one shoulder, my camera bag over the other. The departure board showed my flight to Iceland in 2 hours. Maya had convinced me to join her on a photography expedition, 2 weeks chasing waterfalls and glaciers and, if we were lucky, the aurora again. This time I was bringing my own camera equipment. This time I was going as more than just a tourist. I was going as an artist. My phone rang. My mother. We'd been slowly rebuilding our relationship, painful conversation by painful conversation. She still didn't understand why I'd left Sean. She probably never would. But she'd stopped demanding I explain myself, and that was progress. Hi, Mom. Paige, sweetie, I just wanted to wish you a safe trip. I smiled. Thanks. I'll send you photos. I know you will. A pause. Your father and we've been talking. About maybe visiting you next month. If that's okay. My chest tightened. Not with anxiety, but with cautious hope. I'd like that. After we hung up, I bought a coffee and found a seat near my gate. I pulled out my journal, the same one from Alaska, now nearly full. I flipped to the last entry, from this morning. Today I woke up without dread. I made coffee exactly how I like it. I wore the bright yellow sweater that makes me happy. I confirmed the commission that will sustain me for the next 3 months. I booked a flight to chase beauty across an island made of fire and ice. A year ago, I drank a magic potion and chose to fall in love with myself. I thought it would be easy, instantaneous, like it was with Sean. But loving yourself isn't like that. It's not a spell. It's a practice. It's choosing yourself 1,000 small times, even when it's hard, even when you're scared, even when everyone tells you you're wrong. It's standing under the northern lights and feeling small in the best possible way. It's creating art that no one asked for. It's leaving when you deserve better. It's staying when something is worth fighting for. It's learning the difference. The potion didn't change me. It just gave me permission to start. And a year later, I'm still starting. Still choosing. Still learning. But I'm here. I'm free. I'm mine. And that's magic enough. I closed the journal and looked out the window at the planes taking off and landing. Each one carrying people towards something or away from something. Beginnings and endings and everything in between. My flight was called. I stood, shouldered my bags, and joined the line of travelers. Behind me was a marriage that taught me what I didn't want. Parents who loved me imperfectly. A self I'd outgrown. Ahead of me was Iceland. Maya. Art. Possibility. More northern lights, if we were lucky. And somewhere in between, learning every day what it meant to be enough. Just as I was. Just as I am. Just Paige. I handed my boarding pass to the attendant and walked through the gate. Outside, the world was waiting. And for the first time in a long time, I was ready.